And the Prime Minister's surprise visit to Ladakh has triggered a major political fight. Leading the Congress's charge, Rahul Gandhi slammed Mr. Modi, posted a video that he claimed was of local Ladakhis saying that China had taken India's land. Rahul Gandhi accused the Prime Minister of lying. In a tweet, Rahul Gandhi said, and I quote now, "Ladakhis say China took our land. Prime Minister says nobody took our land. Obviously someone is lying." Hitting back at the Congress party, the BJP's Sambit Patra then posted a counter video that shows that the Ladakhi locals that Rahul Gandhi quoted in his video, he claims, are Congress workers. Let's raise the big questions then, as politics plays a role, but more importantly, how does this message resonate with Beijing and on the front? The Prime Minister's message, is it more than just good optics? Will this tough talk be enough to change the ground situation in Ladakh? Has the government kept the nation in the dark on the Ladakh standoff? These are just some of the questions we'll raise tonight. I'm joined by General V.P. Malik, former Army Chief, Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, former DG Infantry, Ajay Shukla is Defence Expert, and KC Singh, former Secretary, MEA, is also joining us. I appreciate all of you joining us. We'll come to you one by one. I want to start with you, KC Singh. Give us a sense from a diplomatic perspective. How will the Prime Minister's speech now resonate in Beijing and across global capitals when he says particularly that India will not accept expansionism? Without naming Beijing, it's clear that the Prime Minister is sending out a message. How will that message resonate?
Rajdeep, I think till about 2 days back, Prime Minister and the government were still trying military to military talks, diplomatic channels. They wanted some kind of a face-saving retreat or pullback by China. Now, 2 days back, it seemed to change when he deleted his Weibo app. Then Defense Minister was supposed to go to Ladakh. He cancelled that. So that is when I think it was decided to take a tougher line. And this is the tougher message after the original one where PM said there are no intruders, etc., which I think was meant to give China a face saver if they wanted to step back. Now that put Prime Minister in a bit of a soup later, because the Chinese not only didn't step back, but visibly created that big map of China at finger number 4, which even the satellites could see. So essentially they were trying to embarrass the Prime Minister. So the PM today has changed the tack. This was a message to the Indian Armed Forces, to the ordinary soldier, to the nation, and to Southeast Asia and the Pacific. Because expansionism is not something which is affecting India. It's affecting South China Sea, it's affecting Japan. So it's a message, and that is why that's been noted by China. And they've reacted because they realize that this is the reality. The Chinese are being expansionist for whatever reason, and they need to be curtailed.
So therefore, he's up the ante. Am I correct very quickly that he's up the ante by what he's done today? Well, he has, in a sense, far from de-escalating, actually pushed, in a way, the escalation ladder?
Well, I will not call it escalation. I think we have basically stopped Chinese from further intrusions. We are ramping up the military preparedness, and we are buying time. And we are, in the meanwhile, also conveying to China an intent that we are not backing off.
Okay.
But we'll choose a time and a place of our choosing to take whatever action we want. They are the first movers, but the second mover already has the disadvantage to deal with the status quo having been changed, but has the advantage to decide where to hit, when to hit, or how to hit. And I think the message has gone to China.
Okay, let me come to you, Ajay Shukla, because you have been someone who consistently has questioned the manner in which India has handled the situation in Ladakh, suggesting that the Indian government has been less than transparent with what is happening on the ground. Did you see in the Prime Minister's speech today any sign that now the government of India is acknowledging, in a way, the growing Chinese presence in the area and the fact that this is not just another possible incursion?
Oh, absolutely. For the first time, you're having the government of India step up to the plate, acknowledge the problem, call it expansionism by China, call China the enemy, and send out a signal, not just to the region, not just to India itself, but to the world, saying that while Chinese expansionism seems to have troubled everybody, including in the South China Sea, India is the country that is not going to tolerate this. It's a very strong message that was sent out today. Mm-hmm. It was sent out 18 days too late, but it is derai durustai. I am looking, and you saw the response from the Chinese spokesperson within hours of the Prime Minister's speech. China's tone was noticeably softer. China was climbing down, calling for understanding and dialogue and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So this is a strong message that has gone out and been received in the right quarters for what it is.
You know, in a sense, General Malik, do you believe that the troops on the border needed this kind of message from the Prime Minister in person? It's a double-edged sword, presumably, because, as I said, it could raise the stakes, but at the same time, maybe it sends out a message of readiness to the enemy.
As I see it, the Prime Minister had 3 or 4 purposes. The first, of course, was to go and inspire and motivate people on the front line. Mm-hmm. That is something which all our political leaders have been doing it. Even during Kargil war, I remember Vajpayee coming there during the war, when the war was on. So that was something which was good, and it did raise the morale of the troops. He also met the commanders who mm-hmm. are not only deployed, who are planning, but he also saw their plans, I guess, and mm-hmm. got briefed by them. And he met the troops who had fought in the Galwan Valley. Mm-hmm. So that was also, I think, a good thing that he did. Now, it comes to messaging. He sent 2 very strong messages. One, of course, was to China and to the international community, which Ajay Shukla has just now mentioned. I'm not going to repeat that. Mm-hmm. I thought it was a very strong message which went to them. But the message was also to our own countrymen. And that, look, we should be prepared for any escalation if that takes place. We are a peaceful country, but you cannot predict what may happen. So I think overall it was a good gesture, mm-hmm. and that was in fact the right place to send a very strong message to China. I must also mention to you here, Rajdeep, mm-hmm. that China follows a policy of trying to put the political leadership of the adversary to sleep, or to put them in a comfort zone, and then they strike at the military level, or they take the initiative at the military level. Now, this particular message, which has gone from the battlefield ground, I would say, mm-hmm. I think it has made it very clear to them that the political leadership is not going to sleep, is wide awake, mm-hmm. and the level now is not just tactical or operational, it is now at the grand strategy level in which the whole issue has been taken.
Let me therefore come to you, General Kulkarni. Is your sense also that this is a firm message? I want to see whether we can finally get a consensus today across. Everyone seems to be suggesting that this is the firm, right message sent out. Do you also agree that the Prime Minister's tone was the right tone in the circumstances?
Rajdeep, at this point of time, I think the gloves are off. There is no doubt about that. Everybody seems to know. Everybody has been pushing, but the muscle flexing has been going on from Chinese side for a long time now. And it was time now to say, well, here and no more. And if that be so, if China will be pushed, if at all it has to make anything relevant in terms of talks, to get on to status quo ante 30th April 2020. That is the first thing, that a clear message has to go. The second thing that I feel now, that Xi Jinping, who seems to be in the mold of Mao, that power flows from the barrel of the gun, and not in mold of Deng Xiaoping, where it sees a peaceful rise, the world seems to understand that yes, China is not a country which can be trusted. China has now got into a position where it indeed believes in a debt diplomacy, indeed believes in muscle flexing, and has understood very clearly, is trying to expand, and therefore whether it is the time of Second World War, where we talk of Lebensraum, or we're talking about the great co-prosperity sphere, whatever be it, China is one country which cannot be trusted. And therefore, it was a clear messaging to China that, look, peace is what we would want, but should peace not be coming, or you intend doing the muscle flexing, then you be ready for a war too. And we are ready too. And this was a clear messaging. Besides, of course, the greatest part of it is, I would say, a person who is in Delhi goes at 11,000 feet and instantly starts getting into activities and can speak for 25 minutes to address the troops over there. I think it's highly commendable, leading from the front, conveying it in uncertain terms that tighten your belts, be ready, be physically fit, and should there be a need, you must be prepared. And what happens is Galwan. Galwan is the thing that has triggered. Galwan has shown that Indians will not take it lying down.
But
it doesn't matter
let me stop you, General, for a moment, because I want to take your last point of Galwan. Let's be very honest, what's happened on the ground. I just want to play what the Prime Minister said on the 19th of June at that all-party meeting. And I want you all to comment and then look at how things have changed in the space of a fortnight. Listen to what the Prime Minister had said after the all-party meeting in the context of the situation on the ground.
साथियों, पूर्वी लद्दाख में जो हुआ उसको लेकर आपने रक्षा मंत्री जी और विदेश मंत्री जी को सुना भी और प्रेजेंटेशन को भी देखा। न वहां कोई हमारी सीमा में घुस आया है, न ही कोई घुसा हुआ है, न ही हमारी कोई पोस्ट किसी दूसरे के कब्जे में है।
Contrast the two statements for us, and I want you to start this time, Ajay Shukla, and tell me at the moment, how does one interpret, therefore, the change between 19th, where it appeared that the Prime Minister seemed to suggest that the Chinese have not been able to get a square inch of Indian territory. Now today, without naming China, he seems to suggest that Chinese are engaging in expansionism. How does one, reconcile the two statements? Are the Chinese at the end of the day still very much in the Galwan Valley where they are not supposed to be?
Yes, the Chinese are in a large number of Indian places, Indian territory. They have crossed the line of actual control. They did not do this in the last fortnight. They did it beginning from the 5th of May, when the first intrusions took place into the Galwan Valley. And that was followed by intrusions in Sikkim, in Pangongso, and in other areas subsequently. The government was being completely economical with the truth, whereas a handful of journalists were trying to put out the truth. I think the reason for that was that the government believed that the Chinese would, inexplicably and mysteriously, would just get up and leave and the problem would get over. It was a typical ostrich in the sand mentality. I think the first big blow to the government that started causing this re-evaluation was the clash of June 15th. And subsequently the hard line followed by China and the military-to-military talks and their clear sort of position that we are not going back because we are in Chinese territory, not in Indian territory, has caused this realization, belated realization in the Indian government that they are going to have to take action, that this is another Kargil. This is something possibly even worse than Kargil because it's in multiple spots. And therefore we need to do something about it. So that's what I said, Der Durustai. At least the Prime Minister now is unambiguous and clear, and he's a man of great mental clarity at times. It's clear that what he has to do is to deal with this position of Chinese intrusions, and the problem is not going to go away on its own. It's us, our army, our country that's going to have to deal with it.
No, but given what Ajay Shukla is saying then, KC Singh, what happens to diplomacy? Let's be very clear. We have been engaging with the Chinese at the military commander level for weeks now. There is talk of back-channel diplomacy, but where does this leave, therefore, all of that? Where does this leave the fact that at the end of the day, what we want is the Chinese to withdraw from those areas where which they've come into post-May 5th? How does the Prime Minister going to Ladakh, making this speech, change the ground reality? The ground reality is the Chinese are there.
No, the ground reality will not change with this. This is what I said in my opening statement, that obviously India was misreading China at that stage. And their initial impression was that with military talks, with working the diplomatic channels between the foreign minister and his counterpart, they'll be able to convince the Chinese to step back, as has happened sometimes before, not always. So therefore, Prime Minister, I think, was misled to that extent when he did not concede straight away. But I would imagine he was also trying to provide the Chinese a face saver. Because if we send straight away there in your territory, they cannot go back without losing face. So I suspect India was falling between two stools. How to message it publicly, which Prime Minister was under pressure to do, and at the same time not provoke China. So having tried this for 15 days, they've now come to the conclusion that no, Chinese are not going back. So therefore, Prime Minister has now stepped forward and said, okay, let's go to the next step, which is we are ready for confrontation. This is not going to go away and we will not accept it. And therefore, we will meet you at the points at which you have crossed over, but we are not starting a combat at this stage, but we are not closing the option of a combat. And therefore, this is a threat. This is a threat which is conveyed to the Chinese that we are serious. Take it seriously. Those channels are defunct. They are no longer working, military to military. It's gone at a political level. The message is gone from the Prime Minister to President Xi Jinping.
That's an important point.
Do you want to escalate it?
That's a very important point, that the message has gone, in a sense, from the military level to the political level. The messaging now is going from the Prime Minister to the President of China. The question, of course, is will China back off, General Kulkarni? Will China back off? Because in the past, the Chinese have adopted a two-step forward, one-step back approach. We saw this also 2 years ago in Doklam. So what is to guarantee us that merely the presence of the Prime Minister in Ladakh will scare off the Chinese?
Yeah, Rajdeep, to a large extent, I would tend to agree with you, because what has happened in 2013, 2015, 2017, they have virtually gone back. Let's put it, the status quo was maintained. But this time when they have come with a purpose. Imagine a nation, why would it want to do what it is doing? Imagine it being hit economically, it being hit diplomatically, it being hit internationally, and still it is insisting on doing it. There must be something drastically wrong. If giving it that it is a nation which also must have war gamed it, it must have also thought over it, it must have actually done all what it needs to do before it takes a step like this. And therefore, I would go along that they have come with a purpose, and that purpose is to grab whatever they wanted to, and they've done it. And now is the time that they would now negotiate, okay, we will go back a bit, maybe between finger 4 and finger 8, they might decide to, okay, go back to finger 7 to begin with.
So they are negotiating from a position of strength, General.
Yeah, they are, I would put it this way, at this point of time, it is a face saving. I wouldn't give it to them from a position of strength, right? Yeah, if you look at it that way, that he comes and sits on finger 4, and though all these areas, again and again, we have to really understand, all these areas are disputed areas. Even when we say Galwan, anything beyond petrol point 14, their side is theirs. Anything petrol point 14, our side is ours. Yes. So if he is trying to come in his own side, how are we going to be telling him that what the hell is he doing there? So whether the satellite images, if they start showing you they've crossed petrol point 40, then that is of relevance to us. But if it's beyond and he's in no side, he can do anything. That side may be another 125 kilometers.
But the worry, of course, General Malik, therefore, is the Prime Minister lauding the bravery and the fury of our soldiers. I just want to play what he said, and I want you to respond to this, because he invoked Lord Krishna. This is, of course, the Prime Minister at his oratorial best, invoking Lord Krishna. Listen in, General Malik, and I want you to respond.
ये हमारी पहचान है, हम वो लोग हैं जो बांसुरी धारी कृष्ण की पूजा करते हैं, तो हम वही लोग हैं जो सुदर्शन चक्रधारी कृष्ण को भी आदर्श मान करके चलते हैं.
Now, this is strong rhetoric, but the question is, are we ready for an extended military conflict? What are we talking about in reality to actually get the Chinese to completely pull back, General Malik?
Look, firstly, your first question was why this political waking up now?
Yes.
Now, there were some immediate actions that of the Chinese, which were, I would say, first, of course, what happened, this premeditated, the realization that it was a premeditated effort. Then what happened in Galwan Valley, and thirdly, now realization that they have entrenched themselves in the area of north of Pangang, so between finger 4 and finger 8. These are the immediate things that happened. And the second thing is, I don't think people will forget what they have been doing in the past, because there are many places where they have entered in disputed areas and never gone back. So all this has gone into the mind of people who are taking these decisions, and that is what has now escalated it from the military level to the grand strategic level. People thought that military to military talks will probably be able to resolve this present issue, but then now they have realized that that is not so. It's not going to be so, and they have now raised it at the grand strategic level, where the whole national effort is involved from both sides. And as we said, it was a message from Prime Minister of India to the President of China. And I don't think that people are going to get into a war situation straight away. This will probably linger on. It will again go back to diplomatic level and the political level. It is not going to be decided at the military level. I think that is quite clear now. And but the long-term message is more important, which is going to China. Don't take us for granted now. I think the strength of the message today is long-term.
No, I take your point, General.
Not so much in the short term.
I take your point, but KC Singh, will China get the message? Will China, with all that has been done, you're banning Chinese apps, you're going to impose duties, you're looking for support from America, from Japan today. Will the Chinese get the message? Do you believe that they will get the message?
Rajdeep, this is not happening in isolation. They also moved into Hong Kong. Now, unfortunately, Europe is sitting on the fence, but Canada, US, UK, and Australia, and now joined by Japan and India, came up with a very strong statement. So there is a fire lit on the Pacific coast, and that is going to be drawn. It's gone to the Human Rights Council. So they will find that it's not a standalone problem. Do they want to take on everyone? Because then sooner or later, all these grouses gather. And ASEAN itself has taken a very strong stand now, which was divided earlier, on South China Sea. So there's a convergence of forces taking place. And this would not be lost on the Chinese, that you do not open so many frontiers. They were probably testing this. They were also trying to see, will anyone else kind of side, would India be isolated? Well, they haven't openly supported us on this, nor have we sought the support on the LAC. But they all have their grouses and they're combining. And that is how the alliances, alliances built up.
Is that enough, though, to drive the Chinese out of the Galwan Valley, Ajay Shukla? Is coercive diplomacy, the kind of language the Prime Minister has used, enough to drive them out of the Galwan Valley? They haven't come, presumably, into the valley to simply go away, come tomorrow.
Yes, it's very difficult to conclude that the Chinese have just wandered in without adequately thinking through the consequences and what might happen and what their reactions would be. They've accumulated a massive amount of troops on each of these places where they've entered. The area to the rear of each one of these places is reinforced with supporting troops in case India wants to escalate. And they've got all the wherewithal in place. Now, it sort of is hard to believe that one statement from the Indian side, no matter how resolute, no matter how strong a statement as the kind that Prime Minister Modi delivered today, is going to get the Chinese decision makers to say, okay, we misunderstood this all along, let's go back. So I think I would love that to happen. I would love this to be resolved without bloodshed. But the fact of the matter is that China seems to have come with a certain resolve and a certain clarity of purpose. And I don't think it's going to be shaken in that resolve and clarity of purpose by one statement. So I think that we'll have to wait and watch, and we'll have to see what the Chinese reaction is. If they go back, well and good. If they don't, then we've got some hard days ahead.
Okay, let's leave it there. Clearly, for once we seem to have at least had a broad consensus that maybe the message was at least sent out at the right time. And to that extent, hopefully that message will resonate. Der aaye, durust aaye is the general, I think, sense at the moment. You needed that strong message to be sent out to China and needed to be a little bit more transparent that yes, the Chinese are in expansionist mode. Thank you all very much for joining me here at the top of the news today. Good to have news without the noise. No crosstalk is always welcome on the news today.
Hello everyone, this is Rahul Kamal here. Hope you enjoyed this video. For the latest news and analysis, like and subscribe the India Today YouTube channel, and don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated.